At first, nothing looks wrong. They still reply. They still smile. They're still there. But something feels off. You notice the pause before they respond. The way conversations end sooner than they used to. The shift in tone, not cold, just thinner. This is usually when people start blaming themselves. They replay conversations. They wonder what they said. They try to fix a problem that was never explained. But people don't start treating you differently because you made a mistake. They do it because the power dynamic changed. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly. Respect doesn't disappear all at once. It leaks out in small permissions people take when they think you won't stop them. One of the earliest signs is how your presence is handled. You speak, and the room moves on. You share something, and it's acknowledged without being carried forward. You suggest, and someone else repeats it later, louder, and it suddenly matters. That's not misunderstanding. That's placement. People are constantly adjusting where they place you in their mental hierarchy. And once that placement drops, behavior follows. This isn't new. It happens everywhere power exists, even at the highest levels. When Rihanna started stepping back from constant public access, interviews around her changed. Early in her career, journalists talked over her. Later, they waited. Not because she became kinder, not because she became louder, but because her availability changed. Access reshapes respect. And the same thing happens in everyday life. People start treating you differently when they believe you are predictable. Predictable forgiveness, predictable availability, predictable explanations. The moment someone knows you'll smooth things over, they stop handling you carefully. That's why the shift often begins after you've been patient for too long. You tolerated interruptions. You ignored small dismissals. You let things slide because you didn't want tension. What people learned wasn't that you were kind. They learned you were safe to test. And testing always comes before disrespect. Watch what happens when someone delays responding to you, just once. They're not busy. They're checking whether the delay costs them anything. If nothing changes, the delay becomes normal. This is how dynamics recalibrate. Timothy Chalamet talked once about early auditions where he was spoken to casually, almost dismissively. Years later, the same rooms went quiet when he entered, not because his personality shifted, but because the consequences did. People respect what they believe they could lose. When there's no risk of losing access to you, energy, attention, or emotional labor slowly drains. That's why people start treating you differently after you've been generous. Generosity without boundaries teaches others that your time and presence are flexible and therefore less valuable. And here's the uncomfortable part. Most people don't consciously decide to disrespect you. They slide into it. They mirror the level of seriousness you bring to yourself. When you over-explain, you invite evaluation. When you justify, you lower your position. When you chase clarity from someone who created confusion, you reverse the power flow. This is why the change feels so confusing. You didn't do anything wrong. You just didn't interrupt the shift early. Billie Eilish once mentioned how people around her changed when she stopped oversharing. Not because she became distant, but because she became selective. Selectivity signals self-trust. And self-trust is the foundation of how others treat you. People begin treating you differently when your reactions tell them you'll absorb more than you should. You laugh off what should have been addressed. You accept tone changes without question. You stay present where you should have pulled back. That's not strength. That's exposure. The moment someone senses you'll stay even when subtly diminished, they relax their respect. This is why the most dangerous disrespect doesn't look aggressive. It looks casual. It looks like familiarity, like comfort, like we're cool, right? But real respect always includes restraint. Notice how people handle someone they truly respect. They pause before speaking. They choose words carefully. They don't assume unlimited access. When that restraint disappears, treatment changes. And the mistake most people make is trying to earn back what quietly left. They become more helpful, more agreeable, more available. But respect doesn't respond to effort. It responds to boundaries, not loud ones, not confrontational ones, internal ones. When you stop overcorrecting how others treat you, dynamics adjust. When you don't rush to fill silence, people lean in. When you don't explain your value, people sense it. When you remove access instead of demanding behavior, respect recalibrates naturally. Zendaya rarely explains herself in interviews anymore. She answers what she wants and lets the rest sit. And because she doesn't chase approval, she's given room. That's not arrogance. That's positioning. People start treating you differently when they sense you're no longer trying to be understood at all costs. And here's the truth most people miss. You don't lose respect when you say no. You lose it when you say yes while feeling diminished. The shift back doesn't require speeches. It doesn't require ultimatums. It starts the moment you stop making yourself easy to place. Because people don't change how they treat you when you ask them to. They change when the dynamic no longer feels the same. And once that happens, the behavior follows quietly, naturally, and without explanation. Just like the shift did.
Click the red button below.